Hey guys, welcome to Tech Vitals. Today we are going to learn how to use loops in Python. So loop is simply a block of code that repeats a sequence of instructions until a specific condition is met. So in Python, we have two kinds of loops, while loop and for loop. And if you are coming from some other programming languages like Java or C++ or some other, then you may also be familiar with do while loop, but in Python, we don't use do while loop. So it's either while loop or the for loop. And we are going to take a look at both while loop and for loop in this lesson. So let's start with while loop. Okay, so let's say num equals 1, and now to use while loop we use while keyword, and then we give the condition. So while num is less than or equals to 10, so this is the condition, and now we need to indent the code that we want to execute inside this loop. So you can see there is a space of 1 tab, so we write all the statements of this loop after this indentation. Okay, so let's print the num, and then after printing the num, let's increase the num by 1. So we have this variable num with the value of 1, and then we created a while loop that checks the condition num is less than or equals to 10. So that means all the code inside this while loop will run as long as this condition is valid or this condition is true. So num has the value of 1, so it will check whether the num is less than equals 10. So 1 is less than equals to 10, so the condition is valid. Now while loop will execute these statements or this code. So first it will print the num, so it will print 1, and then increase the num by 1, so then the num will be 2. Then again it will check the condition if num is less than equals 10, so 2 is less than equals 10. Then again it will execute this code. So as long as the value of this num is less than or equals to 10, while loop will execute this code. But when the value of num will be greater than 10, so when the value of num will be 11, then this condition will be false or this condition will be invalid. Then the loop will exit and we will get out of the loop. So if we run this code, so run loops, now as you can see it printed 1 2 3 to 10, because after 10, when it increased the number by 1 and when it became 11, then this while loop was invalid, so the program exit the loop. Now in this while loop we can do anything. So instead of printing the value of num, we can just print hello world. So this loop will print the hello world as long as the value of num is less than or equals 10. Actually, let's change this 10 into 5 so that it will get easy to look at our output in the console. So now this loop will print this hello world 5 times. So let's try to run this. So it printed hello world 5 times. Now when using the loops, we also need to know about break and continue. So let's take a look at the example of break. So at the beginning, let's write a if condition. So if num is equals 3, then we will break the loop. So here what we are doing is, in the beginning of the loop we are checking the if condition. So if the value of num is 3, then we are breaking this loop. So what happens is, before using this break, we are printing the hello world 5 times, but here when the value of num will be 3, then we are breaking the loop. So that means we will not be executing this code whenever the value of num will reach to 3. So if we print this, then as you can see the hello world is printing only 2 times, and that's because at the beginning the value of num is 1. So this if condition is not valid because the value of num is not equals 3. So that's why it will print hello world, and that's how we got the first hello world. And then it increased the num by 1. So now the value of num is 2. So it will check the condition here. If 2 is less than equals 5, yes. And then it will check if num equals 3. But now the value of num is 2. So this if condition is not valid. So that's why it will print the hello world again. So that's how we got this second hello world. And then it will increase the value of num by 1. So now the value of num will be 3. So the while condition is still true because 3 is less than equals 5. But when you check this condition, if num equals 3, so now the value of num is 3. So this if condition is valid. So it will go inside this statement. So here we are saying that if the value of num is 3, then we will break the loop. So that's why here the loop is broke. So we are not getting these following hello worlds, and that's why we get just 2 hello world. Okay, so that's the use of break. So we can use this break to break the loop if certain condition is true. And now let's look at the continue. So let's remove this break and replace it with continue. So when we used break, that break will just exit the loop whenever certain condition is reached. But when we use continue, it will bypass the remaining code or remaining instructions only for that specific condition. So that means it will not exit the loop, it will just not execute the code for that specific time. So here we are saying that if num equals 3, continue. So that means we don't want to execute this code only when the value of num is 3. So when the value of num becomes 4, then we do want to print this statements. So we just don't want to execute this only for one time, that is only when the value of num is 3. So now let's try to run this and let's see what it will result. And as you can see, it still printed hello world twice, just like in our break example. And that is because when the value of num became 3, then it just bypassed this statement. So here we are increasing the num by 1, but since it didn't run this code, the value of num didn't change. So the value of num is still 3 because this code never ran, and that's why it couldn't increase the value of num to 4, and we didn't get to print this hello world. So what we can do is we can just increase the value of num within this if condition. So let's increase the value of num inside this if statement. So now when the value of num will be 3, then we will increase the value of num by 1. So here the value of num will become 4, and then we are using this continue. So the remaining loop statement will not run only at this specific time when the value of num is 3. But here we have increased the value of num, so the value of num will be 4. So the next time when it will check this condition, then this if condition will be invalid because 4 will not be equals to 3, and then this if statement will not run. So this continue will not run, and that's why we will get this hello world printed in our console. So let's run this and see what happens. Now as you can see, it printed hello world 4 times, and that's because when the value of num was 3, we used this continue keyword, and only that specific time this hello world was not executed, and that's why instead of getting 5 hello worlds, we just got 4 hello world because of this continue keyword. Okay, so that is the while loop. And now let's take a look at the for loop, which is the most used loop in Python. Okay, so again let's print hello world 5 times using the for loop. So for I in range 5, then inside this indentation print hello world. Okay, So here what we are doing is for I in range 5. So this range 5 indicates that we are going to run this for loop 5 times. So if we run this, then it will print the hello world 5 times. And instead of this hello world, we can just print I. And if you try to run this, then it will print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you might be wondering why it is not printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is because in the for loop, when we use this range, it uses the index values, and the index value always starts from 0. So that's why range 5 will start from the 0 index, then 1, 2, 3 and 4. So in the string video, we learned about the concept of indexing. So we did something like this. So let's say str1 equals apples, and if we try to print str1 and we give the index from 0 to 5, then this 0:5 means that the index will start from this 0 position and it will go until the 5th index position, but excluding the 5th index. So that means it will just go from 0 to 4 because it will not include this 5. So if we try to print this, then we will print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will just print apple, it will not print S. So let's comment this out and just run this print string code. So if we run this, it will print apple because it didn't include this 5th index value, that is S. But if we put 6, then now it will go from 0 index to 5th index, that is excluding the 6th index. So now it will print apples. So here the range 5 has the same concept as this 0:5. So we can say that range 5 is same as this 0:5. That is, it will start at the 0 index, it will go until 5th index but excluding 5th. So that's why when we used range 5, we got 0 to 4. So if we comment this out and we can just delete this, okay. So when we use this for I in range 5, then at first the I will get the value of 0 because the index value starts at 0, and then it will go until 4, that is not including 5, and that's why when we run this, it printed 0 to 4. And here if we put 6, then now it will go from 0 to 5. So it is all about indexing, and we can just print anything. So we can print hello 6 times, that is from 0 index to 5th index. And here we can actually put underscore instead of that I because we are not using that I anywhere in our for loop. So if we were to use this I, then we had to use I in here, but since we are not using this variable, so this is actually a variable, so when we are not using that variable, we can just use this underscore, and that means just a throwaway variable. That is, we are just using this underscore only to loop through our statement. So we can just use underscore, but there is nothing wrong to use I, but the convention is that when we are not using the variable, then we can just use the throwaway variable using this underscore, and it will also print the same thing. So it printed hello 6 times. Okay, now let's do something else. So let's say str1 equals hello, and now what we can do using for loop, we can use for I in str1, and we can print I. So here we are going to loop through this str1 variable, and as we know, the string values are based on the index positions. So when we try to loop through this string, it will use all these index values as the loop through element. So if we try to print this, then as you can see, first it got H, then E, then L, and O. So it just looped through all of this string value. If we declare another variables, let's say str2 and type world, and instead of str1 we are gonna loop through str2. Now it will print WORLD because it's going to loop through all of these string values based on their index positions. And we can also do range, and then inside range we are gonna use the length of, let's say, str1. So the length of this string value hello is 1 2 3 4 5. So this range and this len str function, it's basically going to return range of 5 because the length of str1 is 5. And if we try to print I, it's printing 0 to 4 because this means range of 5. So it will loop through from the 0 index to 4th index. But what we can do is we can do str1, and we can just use this square brackets to indicate the index of this str1. So the first value of I will be 0, then it will go till 4. So now instead of printing these indexes, it will print these values that are in this index positions. So if we try to print it, now it's printing hello because hello is the value that is in the first index, that is 0 index, and then 1 index, 2, 3, and 4th index. So that's how we can loop through the strings. We can also loop through other data types like list, tuple, or sets, and we will look at them in the future videos. But that's how we use the for loop. And we can also use that break and continue within our for loop. So let's do the same thing. So if I equals 3, then break the loop. So now it will just print the str1 values from the index position 0 to 2, because whenever the index value will be 3, it's going to break the loop. So we are going to get only H, E, and L because these are 0, 1, and 2 index position value, and this second L is in the index of 3, and whenever the index will get to 3, it's going to break the loop. So we will not going to get this L and O, we will just get HEL. So let's try to run this, and as you can see, we just got HEL. And now if we use continue, then whenever the index value will be 3, at that time only this code will not run. So that means we will not get this L value because it is in the 3 index position, but we will get this O because right now we are not using the break, we are just using continue. So it will just break the loop only one particular time when the value of index is 3. So if we try to run this now, then it printed HELO. It didn't printed this L because of this continue. So that's for loop, and the loops are extremely important parts of any programming language. It saves a lot of time. So let's imagine if we want to print hello world 100 times. So to print the hello world 100 times, we have to write this print hello world 100 times, which will be really time consuming. But using the loop, we can just type for underscore in range 100 and then print hello world. And only writing these 2 lines of code, we can print the hello world 100 times. So if we run this, it will print the hello world 100 times. And it is just a small example. So using the loops, we can save a lot of time and effort. And in Python, for loop is very common. I rarely use while loop. So whenever I have to use loop in my Python program, I always prefer to use for loop. So I hope you found this video really helpful. I will see you soon with the next video. Till then, keep learning. Goodbye.